following is a commemoration of the work of D.L. Zemper, master of photography. Mr. Zemper started his photographic career in World War II as a commissioned photo officer flying in B-17s over Europe. In 1947, he purchased Nelson Studio in Howell, Michigan, and spent the next 50-plus years capturing the people, places, and events of small-town America. The following images are all black and white examples taken by Mr. Zemper from the late 1940s to the 1970s when black and white photography was still king. Some of his career highlights include 1948, Mr. Zemper joined the Professional Photographers of Michigan. 1954, elected to the prestigious Michigan Photographers Society. 1960, elected as the president of the Professional Photographers of Michigan. 63, he was named Midwest Photographer of the Year. Wins Michigan Photographer of the Year 3 separate times. In 1966, honored as United States Portrait Photographer of the Year by the Professional Photographers of America. In that year, 3 of the top 5 prints in the country were black and white works by Mr. Zemper, including the #1 portrait. In 1970, at the PPA National Convention in Chicago, Mr. Zemper was awarded his Master of Photography degree. Some of his work remains in the permanent collection of the PPA. It is a pleasure to present his work here for you. From 1943 to 1945, Mr. Zemper served as a commissioned photo officer in the 457th Bomb Group, 1st Division, 8th Air Force. Stationed in England, he flew missions in B-17s over Europe. He and his team captured thousands of images of World War II. At war's end, he managed to salvage hundreds of these unique images and brought them home. To this day, many of these are still being studied and archived. His favorite photo from this time is the one he entitled Coming Home, which symbolized the end of the war and the beginning of a much brighter future, a future that now included photography.
I had gone to college trying to be a doctor. I always wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help people and that sort of thing. But after a couple of years in college, I realized I wouldn't be able to work my way through college and still go to med school and be working on stuff till 2 o'clock in the morning every day to get through that. Working my way through college was not particularly easy in those days. They didn't have scholarships like they do now, or you could just get a scholarship if you were a good student and go right through college with all expenses practically paid for you. We had to work our way through. I had to work washing dishes and glasses and mopping floors and doing all kinds of stuff. And for my room, I had to shovel snow and wash windows and do all kinds of things to earn my keep. And you still had to go to school, and you had to get your work done, your studying done. And then, of course, I got to school because they wanted me, because I was a runner in high school that was pretty good. Good enough so that they wanted me to run on their teams up there. So I did. And Eastern, what is now Eastern Michigan University. At that time, it was Michigan Normal College. It was a teacher's college, training teachers. And we had about 5,000 kids in school, and we were a small school. Now, of course, they're a big university and 28,000 kids now. It's amazing. But they came down and talked to me and wanted me to come to school. They gave me jobs for my room and for my board and that sort of thing. And I would run for the school. And I did that. I had always wanted to get to college, so that got me there. I ended up being in chemistry and real strong in chemistry. And but not just that one. I had majors in chemistry, physics, and math. Well, 3 majors, because I was there for an extra year. And the war was already starting and all that. And so I ended up going right into the military practically. But I was worked in Buick, and I saw this one girl outside King Dorm. We used to be standing out in front of the dorm like she was waiting for somebody to pick her up or something. Every day when I parked in my car in front of that dorm, I'd see her there. I always parked my car in front of her dorm there because it was on a hill. King Dorm was on a hill. It was a long, sloping slope down the hill. It must have been 4 or 5 blocks. You came to a stoplight. My car wouldn't always start. The crank wouldn't get her going sometimes, and I'd have to get pushed or something with it. So I park it on that hill every morning, so that if the car didn't start in the morning, I could just let it coast down there, and it would coast down and get speed up. So that just as I get to the bottom of the hill, I knew that green light was going to come on, and it did, and I could get by there, and then the car would start. Good old days. The girl was a little long black hair, real pretty girl. I thought she was pretty as a dickens. And she was a freshman, so she was a lot younger than I was, 4 years or so. And she turned out to be my wife. 50-some years. In the meantime, I had enlisted. 43 came along right away, quick then. Mm-hmm. I was already in the Army. I was already enlisted my birthday in 42. But we got living up in Flint there. I got a letter from the Pentagon, a telegram one day, and it said, what's your experience in photography? And I didn't have any. I mean, I had taught. I wrote a telegram back, and I explained to them I had no experience in photography, other than as a tourist walking down the street with a box camera and taking snapshots. Other than that, I had no experience at all. So I got a telegram back, said, you are now an Air Force photographer. You will go to school at Yale University. Yeah. I already had 5 years of college. Go to school at Yale University, okay? I sold my car. So I bought it for $75, it had $75,000. I put $75,000 on and sold it for $75. Right? And he wrecked it the next week. He was an old guy. Oh well. Yeah, they were going to make a photographer out of me. And I was with a group of about 8 guys at Yale at that time that were in Army training, So we weren't there too long. I think 3 months or something like that. I had all the chemistry and physics and all that sort of thing. Because after I graduated, I stayed on to college and president called me in one day and asked me if a lot of the instructors and everybody were going away to the war, you know. They were short on teachers and that. And I had a teaching degree and everything, so he put me in freshman physics, and I taught freshman physics for a semester. I was already enlisted in the Army and everything, but we had to go through our 3 phases of training, a month each, of 3 phases of training. And as it happened, I missed most of the first month in Rapid City, South Dakota, and then I met them as they went up to Washington, the big mountain, and there they had chopped off the top of the mountain and put an airfield on top of it, and it was covered with frost, solid all the time. So we never got a plane to mount anything off the ground in that time. And I met all the guys who were going to be working with me. I was given 20 men, 20 photographers who were enlisted men, and that was my group. And I was going to take them overseas, and that was the whole deal. But we just couldn't get an airplane off the ground. Our second training was just reading comic books. So we went to our 3rd phase training, Salt Lake City, and then back over into Nevada, just across the border, was a big camp. That was our 3rd phase training. And we spent a month there. We could fly there. And that was the whole deal. Then we shipped right on out in a sealed train going through all the way across the country, went right by here, right just between here and Flint. Oh, train going right through here, and I could almost spit on the house where my wife was living. But we couldn't get out of the train. It was a sealed train, of course. And we went across into Canada and ended up in New Jersey for our kickoff spot. We got there for about 3 weeks while they taught us everything we had to know about getting off a ship in case we were torpedoed or something. And 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we started out. Yeah, we started out, we went south. In the afternoon, we went south. We kept on going in the evening, and 2 o'clock in the morning, the whole convoy stopped. It was everybody sitting in the water. And then they started up the engines again. We turned around, and we were off South Carolina. We came back all the way up past New York, where we started out from the day before, up to Boston. We picked up a battleship and 4 cruisers and a dozen destroyers. And we were going. We knew we were going to either to Africa or New Guinea because we had pith helmets and fly netting over, nets and shorts on. So we knew we were going where it was going to be hot, and we were heading for Greenland. And we got to Greenland in about several days, and boy, oh boy, it was cold. But anyway, we went from there over where we could look over and see Iceland, but we didn't land in Greenland or in Iceland. Came down past Ireland and into the Scottish border of Glasgow. We got into our base in England. We took a train out from Glasgow. We were buzzing along through the Scottish mainland there, and it was late at night, somewhere around midnight, and the train stopped. And everybody out, get beyond the train. We got everybody out of there, and this little German fighter came whipping along there, just zapped your old machine gun right along the train, you know. And then it went up, ooh, around, came around back again, and did the same darn thing again. And we were hiding out there in the bushes. And you talk about being scared. I mean, we got introduced to the war in a hurry there. But we got down into the base, and it wasn't finished yet, but the British people were building it for us. This radio came on. We got all of us, and the officers got into the officers' club, which was fairly filled up, and they had barmaid and all that stuff. And they turned the radio on, and over the mantel was a mantel there, a fireplace in it. And this little radio was sitting on there, and 11 o'clock at night, I was Lord Haha. And he got out and he told me all this stuff, and he says, and the news tonight, he says, the 457th Bomb Group is coming into Glatton, and they're going to settle down, and we know all the people now. You people in Glatton, if you're watching, you're listening to me, we know all the people in your outfit. We know their wife's name and their social security, how many kids they got. We know everything about them. And if you don't believe me, he says, check on something. You will find out that something is misplaced right in the room we were in. In other words, somebody had informed him of something that day, you know. We made a mad dash to find out what this was. He checked it. Sure enough, it was wrong.
Huh.
Something was put in the wrong place. Yeah, they were building up my photo lab. Yeah. I was a group man, and I go over any of us go to any group we were assigned to. And we didn't plan all the missions or anything. Just certain ones tried to have somebody who would go do it. We had I had a lot of K-21 cameras, which weighed about 35 pounds. And we put them in the floor of the radio room in there, and turn them on as the bombardier yelled bombs away. You turn it on, it clicks off one every 6 seconds. They would take a picture and do this on film, which was about a foot wide, a roll of film, and 50 feet long, all rolled up in this camera. And it would, we'd do up the film when it came back. We'd have every 6 planes about, usually we would have a camera on. In case we'd have at least 3 or 4 each time. And you never knew for sure the planes were going to come back, you know, so you had to be sure to have more than one there so that one of them is going to come back if they get shot down or anything. Boy, you put those things on those reels and spin them through it and spin them back the other way and do that 6 minutes or 9 minutes or whatever it was you were doing. The good old days. But I was in photography. I had 20 men and an artist in my outfit. And they were in the 3 groups. I had them in, 3 groups actually. They would work different sections. One group do the processing of the film, another would taking the cameras out, getting it into the planes and getting it back and out of it, getting it in, processing the film and doing the prints up on wet film. We ran them right through wet film. When the plane touched down, the first plane touched down coming in from the mission, the general wanted these finished pictures on his office desk in an hour, and he lived 10 miles away. So we had to process fast for it. We had to work. We didn't always do it in an hour, but we ran pretty close. I introduced the general to movie cameras. We didn't have any movie cameras equipment at all. The fighter pilots had them in the wings, and when they would turn their machine guns on, the cameras would come on, and you could get the shots of them shooting planes down and get credit for stuff easy. And I had an idea one time that I went over to a buddy of mine who was a photo officer in a field just a couple miles away, a fighter field. And we were talking away, and he wanted a K-20 camera so bad. I mean, it's a little handheld camera, weighed about 10 pounds, and it's the smallest camera we had. And he wanted one real bad because he wouldn't have anything to get still shots around the base with or anything, you know. So I told him I wanted a movie camera, and I'll trade you a K-20 for a movie camera. He thought that was a great idea, and so he got me 3 of these movie cameras, and I gave him a big K-20, which was our smallest camera. And so I sent it up with one of the guys when they were on a mission, just to shoot stuff around, shoot shots of the planes beside you, flak bursts and things like that, all going on. And we processed that thing in the lab, and I sent pictures from that with our stuff in that first mission we had to the general's office. And I got a letter back, not a letter, but a call back from a general. He said, "What the hell are you doing over there? You know, that movie camera. You're not authorized to have a movie camera." And I said, "Well, I think it's a good idea." And he said, "You know, I think so too." He said, "By God, we're going to get some out there to you guys, you bomb guys." And well, it didn't take, I don't think, 2 weeks. Every outfit, bomb outfit around us, around the whole 1st Air Force, all had movie cameras. Oh God, we had a lot of fun. We were still in the stage. We had 30 days rest and recuperation, and then we reassembled out at Sioux Falls, South Dakota, because we were going to transfer into in Kansas into B-29s, and we would be going to the Pacific War, and we were going to go to Okinawa as the last place in the world we wanted to go to. But we were going to go, and they were setting us up for it. And we were on the base there at Sioux Falls and almost ready to ship out, and the war ended. They dropped a bomb, the big bomb. And 4 days later, they dropped the other big bomb. And then the war was over, and we just got ready to go home. It was done. Discharges came through, but there was a big thing happened in Washington, D.C. The 8th Air Force had a room of all the stuff. We had to ship pictures back. See, we shipped all the pictures to the general, and he would get them over to the thing, and they'd be sent back to Washington, D.C. And all this photo history of the war over there was in this big room. It was the Air Force room, European 1st Air Force. And we heard later that it had caught fire. That room caught fire and burned most of our stuff. They saved a lot of it, but most of our records and things were gone, and we didn't have anything left. But all of us gathered up a lot of pictures ourselves, like the stuff I have. An awful lot of pictures of the war, but so we were able to fill in all that stuff again. But I came back here and made my decision. Buick was after me to go back to work there, and they had everything set. All you have to do is come in and sign in and go to work, and we want you. But I had all this training in photography, and I enjoyed it, and I wasn't going to be making any money on it. I knew about anything, but I could raise a family with it, maybe. And I made my decision. My wife thought I was crazy, but I've been retired a long time ago. But I decided to do it. Well, I started in Brighton. Brighton was a little town, 1,200 people or something like that about then. Just a little town. And I had a lot of fun doing it. I worked with the school, and a guy named Seger, Frank Seger there, ran the newspaper, Brighton Argus, and he introduced me to the superintendent of the schools and talked him into letting me do the seniors that year and work on their yearbook and all that. We did that, and I took pictures of our football team, which was their first undefeated team they ever had. And we did a lot of stuff. We had a lot of fun. But I wasn't making any money. I was driving in to Brighton and back to Howell every day, you know. And father-in-law, Gary Reiner, told me one day, he says, this guy Nelson here in the studio he's 60 years old now. He's not interested in photography much anymore, and he's going to quit. So rather than quit, he sold it to me for $5,000, which was a pile of money for what was there. It wasn't much. I got to know the superintendent real well and here, and he had me doing their pictures and everything. And I took all their sports stuff and everything, and they liked that. That helped the yearbook and everything, so everything went along well, but wasn't a lot of money, but making it. So we had to go out, get a house, and get going. We got the one on Riddle Street. We're there for 55 years or so. Maybe. Take a picture of a lady with her long dress and a black dress and her cap on and everything. She's standing with her hand on a big stone. There's a huge big stone, you know. It's all paper mache. I had those in there. Make pictures with them, you know. I did make a few of them. It was fun. But all those days when film was, do your film up, hang it on a rack with a fan going to dry it. Oh. See.
So, when did you change the name to Zemper Studio?
Right away.
Right away?
Yeah.
Okay. So it went from Nelson to Zemper right away.
Yeah.
And that business has been continuously operated since 1858, right?
Yeah, in a way, but not at that spot.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But very close to that spot. Because when Cleve came in,
He was the first photographer?
yeah, and he had to stay there because he got snowed in and decided he might as well stay because he wasn't going to get down to Georgia very quick anyway in weather like that. So he just stayed, found a job to do or something. And he didn't do any photography, I guess, during wintertime, but he married a girl, forget her dad was a big shot in town, and so he got along all right. And they had a place to live and everything. And he had a studio on the 3rd floor above where I was. There was a 3rd floor up there. There was the Masons had been up there. There was a Masonic lodge up there. And he went through, he was a real ambitious guy. He's a little short guy, about 5'5", and of course, the average man was only 5'8", in those days. But he was a good musician. He was a good painter. He was a good photographer. He just was quite an all-around guy. And to have a photographer stay that long somewhere, because they all traveled by wagon, like when he came here, had his dark room right in the wagon. He lived in the wagon at night, and that was it. So, he was upstairs on that 3rd floor. I've got a picture of that side of the street back in the days, about 1870 or somewhere along in there. And you see a great big sign along under the windows on the 3rd floor said, what's the name? Studio.
Cleve.
Cleve Studio.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that before.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I was up there, of course, several times, because every year the citizens men would come around, insurance men, and they'd have to check the 2nd and 3rd floors, check our place out, and go up. I had the key to the 3rd floor, so we'd go up to the 3rd floor. And there's one great big room, size of a living room, and it was full of nickel slot machines. God, there must have been 30 of them in there, I told him, what's his name, down in the saloon underneath there, what was his name, the old Greek guy. I told him that they were up there, and all of a sudden they disappeared. There wasn't one left.
Huh.
He sold them to somebody.
Well, Howell back during Prohibition, he had something like 30 speakeasies or something, didn't he?
Oh, God. There were, up there, there was one room that was just filled with wine bottles. All over the place, wine bottles. Yeah.
That's
The
good.
Masons don't drink or anything,
Yeah, I know.
That's where I got started with
Yeah.
photography. This is my son, taken when he was a young boy, just starting kindergarten. He was born while I was in Europe during the war, and I remember the date he was born. I was on a mission we were going to bomb the Kiel Canal, Denmark. He was born while I was doing that. I got home, he was a couple of years old. Well, no, he wasn't quite, probably a year and a half old when I got home. And I was trying to get a hold of him, pick him up. He was crawling around on the floor. And he wanted to get down and run around. He didn't care about, he didn't know I was his dad. Yeah, this little fella up here in the corner has got one shoe in his hand, and looking at you, and can't you just see him saying, weren't there two of these? Yeah, this is Rick again when he's reading a book. This is a boy who worked for me going through college, or through high school. And he worked for me part-time. Yeah, it's just two little kids who came in from Flint and had their pictures taken just about every year. Steve, my son, and he was always a good student. And here he is studying in kindergarten. Boy, kindergarten just isn't what it used to be. Just a couple of good kids. Yeah, you can do some silly things around kids and they express themselves. She expressed herself crazy. Oops, oops, oops. This was one of his girls when she was little. And she got that expression. I got her going, and she was waving her hands around and everything. I snapped a shot. And she got it pointing out there. That's the way they went, Sheriff. Right out there. Took a lot of communion pictures. Kids always look good in those. Showing you how she did it. Meantime, she was getting all mussed up and her mother was going crazy. Then there was Susie in the next page here. She's a very pretty girl, always was. Grew up to be a beautiful girl. Her dad worked with Citizens. He was a lawyer. Get something like that, you coax them and get them going, and they come out with a real cute shot like that. They're cute. She was a Mother wanted a picture of her in her Girl Scout uniform, so we got it. She looks like she's going to be a good scout. She'll be all right.
Now, you took most of these kids on Tuesdays? Was that?
Most of them were on Tuesdays, yeah. Tuesday was Tots Day. And
So it'd be nothing but kids all day long.
all day long, yeah. You can't believe what's happening. I don't know. I was making noises. I used to make little noises with her. I'd touch her nose now. Squeaks. And they'd laugh and crazy. The sillier I got, the better the pictures came out. That's an oil, yeah. When Tillie was doing the oil. Yeah, we didn't have color film, in those days. So you had to paint them yourself. Couple of kids, he's my little brother. That's the way he looks like the old Boy Scout. I'll take care of my brother, Just a picture of a girl, pretty girl. I don't know what was going on. I just said something to her about, do you like your little brother or something, She gives me that stuff. She gets him good. This little girl, she wanted something I had, and I said, well, you're going to say please. And she says, if I say please, she gave me that look, and I snapped a picture. Nothing real special, just good, cute expressions. All shot black and white. We didn't have any color film. That's our three oldest kids. They're in front of our fireplace, and I had to get a light in there that would show them, and I've got a flash bulb in there, so I got to get all set up, fired flash bulb, and make sure that they were looking at it. Gail isn't very sure about how this is all going to come out, but it made a good picture. I had it all set up to try to sell it to the government for U.S. bonds for the Korean War. Yeah, that was a minister from Fowlerville, and he wanted the family picture taken. I took the family pictures, and then I said, I'd like if they have a little time to sit around and we'll rearrange a little bit and take a picture like I would like to have you get. And so we set this up as though they're telling the kids, and they're all, his wife and his daughter on one side and the other kids over here. They're he's telling them the way it's going to be, and they're listening like they really felt that they were going to be that way. So that was a family conference. That turned out to be the first picture I ever had in the National, that was hung in the National, and they saved it for they never got it back.
Oh, part of the permanent collection.
Yeah. Mother's Day, 1955. There again, I took their pictures like a regular family picture, and then I asked them if they had a little time, why, let me take one the way I'd take it. And they had a bouquet there with them, which, being Mother's Day, they had given her. So we got the kids all around there, and they're giving her the flowers on Mother's Day. Another one's where we took their pictures every year for several years. To a mom. Yeah, she's giving them a lesson. And this one, Joe Brady, was president of Citizens Insurance, and he had me take their family picture every year for about 15 years. Every year, and he would make up Christmas cards, 300 Christmas cards. Being the president of the insurance company, he'd send them to people all over the country. And in fact, he was telling me, I've got a letter from him when he was in California after we retired, telling me about this, how he sold it. He sent them to over 300 people all around the country, and even in 6 or 7 different foreign countries where they knew people. But it was always some strange picture, unusual picture of their family, which that's what they liked about it. It was a good one. Now this fella started a business here in town, and he had me take their picture every year. He had all these kids, 3 boys and a girl, and he would always have me take them every year. And this one year, was just 2 or 3 years after this one, I guess, I took their picture, and I said to him, he was there with him, brought him in, and I said, how come I'm taking pictures of you every year of your kids and your wife and never get you in it? He said, I don't want a picture of me. I just want my family in there. Well, I said, we better sneak you in there on this one. Let's get you in this one. And so he did. He consented to it. He walked a while, but I talked him into it. And he finally got in there. We got the whole bunch of them. This was the Masons group, who were the Templars, who were going to Washington, D.C. by train, and they were going to be leaving that Sunday morning. So they got me out into the studio to get a picture of them before they left, because they were going to be there because they were going to march in the parade for the inauguration of Eisenhower. So we took their regular pictures. It was about 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning on Sunday morning. And I got their regular pictures, and then I said, have you got time to get down in the train to get to the plane? And they said, yeah, a few minutes, but we'll have to hurry. I said, I want to get another picture of you the way I want it. And so I set them all up like this and got this shot, which we called the instructor, and they were showing them, the younger guys, how the sword was used. And they made the train all right. In our basement, we had a woman who wanted to bring her Cub Scouts down in our basement and have their meetings down there, because she didn't have any other appropriate place to be. So I set it up and had a curtain and everything in there for them, and we took this shot of them, and she's giving them instructions. I took the way she wanted it, just a shot of the different groups of them, but then I took the one that I wanted, the way I wanted it, to get the instructions that they were getting on it. There was one boy leaning over him was not a Cub Scout. He's a Boy Scout. That's my oldest son, Rick. And then my next son, Steve, is standing up here in the back, way over on the right. And they're listening intently and learning all the Scout laws. Got a call from citizens that they wanted me to be over at their place and get a picture of their council. And it wasn't a village council, it was a board of directors of the Citizens Insurance Company. But I called it the village council because I thought it was more appropriate to it. But we took their regular pictures, which they wanted for their newspaper ads and stuff, and then I did up a big one like this one, 1114 of this one, which they had hanging in the office in the place too. But this was hung in the National and received a special merit from the National Organization of Photographers. And it went quite high. This was, again, another one where I took their regular family picture that they wanted. That was a Bush family. Frank Bush was a city councilman. And then took a picture the way I wanted it, to get a picture of them informally with the new baby, which was a brand new baby. Another group which I used to take their family picture almost every year while the kids were young, and just get an informal picture of them working on it. Generally, I would do this often with families if they were interested or had time to let me monkey with them, and they often would end up getting that picture for their ones that they're going to keep. The next one down here was over in Brighton. The family, yeah, they had this pictures on the wall all over, and most of them were not framed pictures. They were oils done and not put in frames, but they were hung around the living room, all around it. And I wondered about it at the time. Found out later that she was the artist in the family, and those were oils that she had done. She didn't tell me that, but they wanted to get them in the family picture too. So if I'd known it, I could have emphasized it more. Mr. Hamilton was president of the Howell Motors, and for quite a while. But he was a real good man. Worked with the city and everything too well. Did a good job. Just a business portrait. It's a fellow from Chicago. I'd taken his senior pictures. And years later, he came back and had me do it. Another one for his business. Yeah, that's Dick Quinlan. Lived next door to me in the house next door with his family, and he was a young fella. Of course, I was fairly young then too, but he worked for farm equipment outfit in Iowa and had a farm equipment store here just outside of town where the Walgreens store is now. Charlie's sitting down here in the corner. Charlie's the one who was mayor of the town several times. Came to Howell from Carroll, Michigan, up in the thumb. Raised as a farm boy and got down here and worked in Bennett's Hardware, where the Opera House is now, and where it was his Sutton's Hardware for many years, all the way through. He bought it from Bennett right away, quick after he got here in 1913, and he had it right up until just before he died. I had to take him, of course, when he became the ruler of the Elks for the first time. He was a president of a union in Detroit, and for some reason or other, he had to have a picture taken, and he came out here to Howell and had his picture taken, and I couldn't figure out why. There are lots of studios in Detroit, but why he came out here, but he did. Anyway, he set up his appointment for a couple of weeks ahead and wrote it down and went back to Detroit. Then the day came for his appointment, and I'm all ready to go and get him in there, and he didn't show up. And he didn't show up and didn't show up all day long. He didn't get there. And I thought, well, I just forgot it, and that was it. The next day he came in and he said, I was checking my book, and my God, here I had an appointment with you at 9 o'clock, day before yesterday or something. And he said, I didn't, I was in Brazil. So here I am in Brazil. I'd flown down to Brazil, and I couldn't get to the appointment, so I got on a plane, came back to Florida, got on a train, or got in another plane, and flew up to Detroit, borrowed a car, rented a car, and drove up to Howell here, and here I am. Came from Buenos Aires or somewhere. Have a picture taken. Ah, what a crazy guy. This one is Pete Baldwin over here in this corner. And Pete was a lifetime member of Howell, Michigan, and head of the JCs when it was getting started back in 47 or 48. And he was president of that. He was in the Rotary Club for many years. Was president of the Rotary Club one time. His dad, he took over the Baldwin's after his dad died, and he ran that for a long time. Baldwin's were on a corner, main four corners, was around for many years, many years here in town. Art hiking and an attorney here in town. Good man. He would kick like a dickens if I put his picture in here, but yeah, he was a carpenter here in town. When I moved downstairs, the studio downstairs into Sally Udy's beer garden, where after she died, he was my carpenter that built the studio up, because I had one great big room, and I had it divided into 6 or 7 rooms. Of course, besides your dark room and your camera room and your dressing room and your business room and frame room and all that sort of thing. And he was the one that did all that for me, because he knew more about it than I did. I put the wall up 13 feet wide, 13 feet high. I put that up one night when there was a basketball game going on, and my boys were at the basketball game. So I didn't have any help, and I had this thing all set up in 2x4s, ready to go. Well, they were only 12 feet high, but the whole thing was all set up and ready to put it up, and I had to lift it up by myself. And I was pushing up, being careful to I was standing between two of in the middle, in case I couldn't get it up there and it got away from me. It wouldn't cut me in two when it came down. But it came down. I didn't get it the first time I tried, but it came down, and I was in between those two before, so I didn't get hurt. But it shook me up pretty good. And I rested up a while and I tried it again. Finally got that whole wall up by itself all at one time. Boy, what a job. Yeah, it was a good backroom wall for a long time. The one over here is Jim Moffat. Of course, I know him, still know him real well. In fact, I spent a couple days with him. He had been living out in Montana for years now. He moved to, Jim Moffat moved here to Howell because he was in with his family growing up, little kids. And he figured it's just too darn dirty in Detroit area there to raise kids. He couldn't get out where the clean air was, so he came out here to Howell and bought R.B. McPherson's house. He bought that, lived in that for about 10 years raising the kids before he finally sold that and moved on out to Montana, where it was cleaner yet. Yeah. But he bought that house. I remember that house. R.B. McPherson had his oldest son was a Rotarian, and I knew him quite well. And he lived in the house for quite a while, and then built a smaller house behind it, on the street just behind it there, back in the woods. You can't see it from the street. But he wanted to get rid of the big house. And so he offered it to me one time at Rotary. He said I should have that, because I had 4 kids. He thought I should have it. I had another one coming on the way. And he says, $35,000 to do it. That was it. So Jim Moffat came along a year or so later and bought it, finally, after a couple of people had rented it for a while. And Jim Moffat bought it for $45,000. It had gone up considerably. But he did a lot of improvement to it, and he added a room on one side, and then he had it repainted and the windows done again and everything, and he sold it for around $100,000, I think. And finally it was bought here for $1 million something. It was offered somebody for that, at least. I think it was sold for about $600,000 something. And I didn't take it at 35. I would never have been able to maintain it anyway. Yeah, there was a fellow from Mason who invented paper cups. I think it was paper cups. And he sold millions of them. He and his wife were farmers out here, and he was president of the Michigan Milk Producers Association of Michigan. Real nice guy. I liked him, and I knew his wife. His wife lived to be 95, I believe. was a nurse and died awfully young. But her husband was a school teacher after he graduated here and got out of college. He came back here and taught school for quite a while and finally ended up in Milford, I think it was. But he's all retired now. But she died when she was about 47, I believe, something like that. Awfully nice person. Ruth Ann was an awful nice person, and she was a cherry pie queen of Michigan, and they were going to have the contest going one day up in Traverse City. It was always up in Traverse City where the cherries were, and I was down early. It was a Christmas. I was busy at Dickinson. So I was down there at 5 o'clock in the morning in the lab doing film for all the Christmas stuff I had to do. And I heard a knock on the door. That's when we were upstairs, in the first place we were in. And I went to see who was knocking on the door, and here was Ruth Ann Lyon. Her uncle was Judge Lyon. He was a circuit judge here in town, in the county. And they were people who had been around here all their lives, the families. She was on her way to Traverse City at 5 o'clock in the morning, had been up at night from 3 o'clock making a cherry pie, which she brought down with her, came up to the studio. And I opened the door and she gave me this pie and she said, "I gotta go to Traverse City and I've been making this pie for you." Because I had taken pictures of her and getting her all set to win the singing. And she went out and went up Traverse City. She won the state cherry pie queen. And I took pictures of her several times after that when she was with her kids, and she got married and raised a bunch of kids. Well, she was the nicest person. Oh. I said to her, she got in the studio and got all set there, and I said, how do you feel? You're going to be married. And she gave me this whole stuff, Fine. I was working in the studio one morning, Sunday morning, and she walked by, and I had just been thinking about getting a picture I wanted a picture of a dark-haired girl, good-looking one and all that, looking like a senorita. And she walked by, and I just instinctively opened the door and said, "Come in a minute, you got a few minutes?" And she came in, and I told her what we're doing. Talking with her, I folded a piece of black paper together to make it look like a fan and put a black veil over the back of her head with a comb in it there and just took her picture. She liked it. I got a good picture of it. Now she was one of the Dunn brothers' daughters. Lived on Michigan Avenue there, and she was married to a fellow who was going to be a minister. In fact, he is a minister. He been a minister all his life. But they got married in the Presbyterian church. And he was a terrific football player. Real good in sports, but especially football. And they came out of the church and everybody threw rice at them. And somebody was in a convertible, Ford convertible, came around the corner at the Presbyterian church there and stopped right in front of the church. And two guys went up and grabbed her and started to carry her off to throw her into the car, backseat of this convertible with the top down. They were going to take her to Detroit, and then they were going to capture him and muscle him into a car and take him to Lansing, and they could have their honeymoon by telephone. And it didn't work out. He was a terrific football player. I tell you, he nailed one guy and laid him right out flat in the grass there. Stepped on another one that went down with him, and he reached over, grabbed and pulled her out of the car, and lifted her right out of the car and off into the fire engine. The three fire engine boys were there too, and they were going to take off with him with the fire engine, which they did. Didn't get them out of town, but they just it didn't work out. A honeymoon by telephone is not the same, you know. But they were going to have fun, so he was mad. I mean, oh, they took care of him. She was our queen one year, the county queen, and then won for the Miss Michigan and won that. And then she went to the Miss Michigan, United States Miss Michigan, or as Miss Michigan, and ended up in 4th place, which is not bad out of 47 others at the time, plus the Hawaiian Islands and the others. So out of 50-some girls, she was 4. These were just girls that were attractive girls and fun to take pictures of. Engagements, yeah, with the drapes and things like that. And other, yeah, I had a sign on this, Dad won't like this, because the lighting was little. He was cute as a Dickens. These were my 2 favorite girls. If I wanted to try out lighting on anything, I'd give them a buzz, especially Patty Down. Patty Down was our our first melon queen in 1960. We were going to take melons to President Eisenhower. Some of the boys that had a little factory here in town rented an airplane which would fly us to Washington. We were going to take off from Lansing. We were over at Lansing, and Doc May was there, and of course he was the one who started the Melon Festival. And so he was there to see them off, and I thought he was going to go in the plane to Washington. And I was getting pictures around the airplane there and everything, everybody getting ready. And I told Doc May to get in the plane because they were going to be taking off right away. And he said, "No, I can't go." He said, "You're going to have to go." And I said, "Well, I hadn't planned on going. I didn't even have a toothbrush with me." And he said, "Well, you're going to have to go." So I got on the plane with him. There was a 7-passenger plane, a small plane. Patty was on the plane, and the pilot and the guy who had hired the plane, and she and I didn't realize that she had never been up in an airplane before. Never been. And so we got going, and she drew up her breakfast, tried to get it into a paper sack, and I took a picture, instinctively took a picture as she was doing this. And she had the paper sack right up to her throat. And it came out, and they put it on Associated Press and went all over the United States. The Queen goes down. Oh, she never forgave me for that. Oh, gee, that was terrible. Zimmerly, I think it was. She was our queen for one time too. Took several pictures of her. This was a girl that ran the pool hall on the corner of Sibley and Michigan Avenue there. Uh, Steve took pictures of her one time, and she told him afterwards that when she gets married, he was going to take her pictures. And she wanted to be sure that he was going to take a picture. And that was when he was running the studio then. And she did. She was in California, and she was going to marry this guy in California. And she sent him airline tickets and everything to go. And he went and took pictures of her. And he got that picture of her in her bridal gown on top of a pool table. Oh, it went good. Now this is Tillie's, my wife's aunt. I liked her a lot. She was, of all the family, I liked her more than anybody. She was a good one. But her husband, of course, been dead for years and years. She had one daughter, lived up in Flume. But she got along with me real well. We had fun. And she saved up her money and bought a fox fur neck piece that she wanted this all her life. And she got it and put it around her neck and was showing it to me. And I said, my gosh, I got to take a picture of you with that. So she consented to go with me to the studio. And we took this picture of her, and this is the way she looked. She just so happy and just bubbled it all over. She loved that fur. A girl who had beautiful eyes. She was a very pretty little girl at the time when she was in high school too, but I wanted to emphasize her eyes, so I covered up everything else practically and got her. She's the daughter of Dorothy Dunn, who was our receptionist up front in the studio. Mick was a representative from Chicago, Kodak of Chicago, and came selling Kodak equipment and chemicals and papers and things like that. We were upstairs when I first bought the studio, and there were 22 steps to get up there, and it was a long hall, and he had a big circumference around his waist. So he was always puffing by the time he got to the top of the studio. He would walk into the studio, and he was a great guy, but he would walk into the studio and look all around the reception room there and find a chair that had a square seat on it. And he would spread his legs and sit down angled on it so the edge of the chair came out through between his legs. And then he would rest his stomach down on that. And he'd just sit there and wait for me to get not busy with somebody and start talking. He was a great guy. Great guy. This is my middle son, Steve, with Fred Server. I found this old valise with some of McPherson stuff that they had gotten rid of after Jim Moffat moved into the house. And I thought if I could get him with an old sweater or something over his arm and his long beard and then my old army hat with all the insignia taken off it, and these two people looking like they were immigrants, wondering if they were going to be allowed to come into the country. And Fred could get the thing looking that way right away quick, but I had to get the smile off Steve's face because he's a little kid and he just was smiling all the time, and so I didn't know what the dickens I was going to do to get him in the expression that I wanted. And pretty soon he got to the point where he wasn't smiling anymore, and I found out after I took a picture that he had to go real bad. He wasn't sure he was going to hold it. Over here is Cliff Heller, who was our mayor for 12 years here in town. And he was going to be representing Abe Lincoln in the Jackson parade of the 100th anniversary of the Republican Party. So he had everything set up to be 100 years old. The suit he had on was 100 years old, and he had a beard growing, which I had to emphasize because he didn't let us get it started soon enough. But I could add that on by retouching it on. And then he had a book beside him there. I went to Detroit, looked in the old bookstores, and found an old German book that was just right. So everything on there on the table he was by him there was 100 years old too. It worked out real well. Kensington Park. We had our German boy who was living with us for a year and going to school at college, or to high school. He and Rick, my oldest boy, we took him out to Kensington, which was being built at that time, as they had dam in there to hold back the water and make a lake over near the Kensington Lake. And from looking from way up on a hill beside it, they were looking down to see that dam being built down there. They got quite a kick out of it. It was a nice shot. And over here is Halloween. This two little kids with their pumpkin. Here again, you've got a light inside the pumpkin because there's not enough light with a candle in there to make the picture, so you have to put a light inside there and hide the wire coming out of it and everything. Anyway, it's fun. Over here is Tillie working. This Tillie is my wife, and she is working in the living room on this particularly large picture. This was a group of, or a family who came in every year with two children and had their picture taken. They taken separately, and then they always wanted a color picture of it, as we had no color film in those days yet. So I did it in black and white, and then we tone it, and then she puts the oil painting on it. And the thing was that they wanted the picture each year to be done up separately. These girls, exactly the height that they were at that time. I don't know what they were doing over the year with all these pictures, but they had a record of how they had grown all the way in pictures of it, all the way through, and all done in oils like that.
So they were actually life-size
They're life-size
pictures.
pictures, yeah. And the pictures, I couldn't get film or paper that size to do it. And so I had to have that done in the prints made in Grand Rapids. I often wonder how they must have displayed them in the house. They must have had a big room somewhere and just papered the walls with it. Over on this next page is a picture, just a farm scene. Which was unique with me because it was a lot of work to do. And I had a picture, I took the negative with the tree and the farm area there and put the barn in there from another negative, added the clouds from another negative, and there was a cow in there somewhere, yeah, and I added the cow in. So it's made up from 4 different negatives all composed in to make the picture just the way I wanted it to be. I would never be able to get it without it. It was, you look at it and it just looks natural. That's a nice little picture out in the country, but it was a heck of a job to make. The little glass horse, which Dorothy Dunn, my receptionist, gave me for Christmas one year, and I set it up and lighted it, tried to light it to make it look like a silver horse. It was just a challenge I gave myself to do, you know, monkeying around with it and experimenting with a light to try to make that look like a silver horse. And I think it worked. Here we got a picture which is one of my all-time favorite scenic shots, taken down off the Ohio River from Marietta, Ohio, right at the bottom of the state. And the bridge goes across to Kentucky, and I had seen these paddle wheel boats going by, pushing big barges in front of them. And I wanted to get that shot. I just down there and set my camera up in a cornfield right on the shoreline. And I had to darken all that part at the bottom because I didn't want those corn stalks to show down there all the time. And then I was all set up the way I was going to get it with the bridge in it, just the way I wanted it. I have the two sides of it, everything dark, and all I had to do was get the boat, get the one ship coming along, and there wasn't any coming. So I got in my car, left the camera sitting in the field there on the shore, and drove down the river west to try to find a ship paddle wheel coming up north. And I found one quite a ways down. And so I came whipping back, got into the camera set up there again and everything, and waited for it. And it finally came along, and I had all this time setting all this stuff up and everything, and I had a second or two to take the picture. Otherwise, I'd missed it. I have to wait for another boat, you know. But I was ready for it at the time, and I took the shot just as we're going through, and just to the point where it didn't show the great big barges that the ship was pushing up the river. Because I didn't care about them in there. I just wanted to get that paddle wheel. So anyway, 4 different negatives made that one picture. High school boy that used to work with me, and I was teaching him how to work in the dark room in the lab, and he was a bug guy in model airplanes, and so I got this shot of him making one of his model airplanes. Got a nice letter from him too, just when I had my 90th birthday. He was out in Pennsylvania or New Jersey or somewhere, or he retired. Real nice letter from him. Yeah, I took a lot of pictures of Fred. A lot of them hung in nationals and state competition. This next one was a fella with a twinkle in his eye, and he was a real easy to get along with fella. He was a minister, and I got quite a kick out of him. we joked around quite a bit while we're taking the pictures. Cliff Heller again is when he was in his outfit with the top hat and the whole works. He was Abe Lincoln in there, called Member of the Bar. There you can see the book that's 100 years old at the same time. Well, of course, most of these are with the big camera. They're shooting 4x5 negatives generally because I want to have a negative I can work on and emphasize things with it too. I've got to bring out things like I got to be sure to light the thing so that nothing takes anything away from the attention except right there where his eyes are. And he's got to get it. He's going to be real serious. And we're going to shoot this thing with electronic flash so we don't have to worry about movement or anything. But we have to get him right.
What kind of film did you usually use?
Panchromatic film until the late 1920s and early 30s. We didn't have a panchromatic film. It was pretty harsh working with it, but with the panchromatic film, everything came out a lot better, and it's a lot better for shots of people.
The earlier films were orthochromatic?
Yeah. Red came out black. If they wore lipstick, you had black lips, you know, because there was no color to it. But that was, there were a lot of little things like that happened in the 20s when you glass plate negatives that we used to use. I got into this photography just as that was going away, and I've still got in the closet there a box of 8x10 glass negatives. They've never been opened. Wonder actually what kind of a picture we would get with them. You know, it might work. Can't tell.
Panchromatic film.
Oh yeah.
4x5s.
Yeah.
Did you have any special way of processing those?
It was all done just the way I did it all the time. It's just the work that you have to do on the print and the negative before your print comes out to get what you want on it for an exhibit print. All kinds of things like wrinkles and things. You might want to emphasize the wrinkles if they don't show up too much, you know. You want to emphasize it, you can put them, just paint them in on the print. And you can take them off in the negative. Everybody has little marks on their face and or little hickeys that show up, they come up dark. You want to emphasize character in something, you know, rather than smoothing it out and making them look pretty. But yeah, if you want a character study, you know, it's a science in itself, I suppose, in a way. I never worried about it too much. I just did it. When you're working with somebody to turn out a picture for them or for their relatives or something, you soften them up. You make them look prettier than they really are. Whereas if it's an exhibit print, boom, you're right there. You're emphasizing the things that are in there to get the attention that the judges are going to be looking for when they're going to be judging that picture. But you make your overall picture on there, on the print, and then by handwork, you hold back the face for a while here to work the rest of it in, or work with a piece of cardboard shaped in an oval or something, and on a wire stick, and you just hold back this area while you're burning all this stuff in around it here. You can darken stuff that you don't want to see, or you can emphasize things by holding the light back.
And what kind of papers did you use?
Actually, which makes a portrait nicer looking sometimes. So we used to use that quite a bit for portrait work.
You had a technique where you bleached certain areas on the actual print.
If it's a large area, you can do it with cotton swabs and that sort of thing, you know, and you have to be awful careful because you got to have a wet one in one hand and you're working one with the other hand. You can bring out an area that you want to around there a little bit, making it lighter. Actually, you're reducing that area, and so that then the detail will show in where it wasn't showing well enough the way you wanted it before. But then you got to swap it off all the time, right away, quick, to keep it from going too far, or you ruin the thing real quick. You start all over again with another piece of paper, you know.
But you used a chemical reducer that you mixed up yourself. You always told me throw in a handful of raw hypocrystals into about a quart of water, and then just a pinch of potassium ferrocyanide, just enough to bring it to the color of a weak martini.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now, for me, coming from a chemist, that was kind of odd, I thought.
Now, for exhibit prints, we toned them with a gold tone. And the gold we bought in a little glass tube. And it was sealed shut. And you crack it open and use that. It came in 1 ounce pieces of gold leaf, not like a gold leaf, only it was a crystal like stuff. And the price of gold in those days, well, the 1 ounce of their gold cost you $32. That's generally what it cost when we were doing it. So you could use this over and over again because it'll last, you know, it'll keep. But I can't imagine what it would cost now. I'll bet there isn't a photographer in the United States that uses it anymore. Well, of course, they don't do black and white anymore either.
That's the end of what happens to it in the lab was the toning, and of course you dry it, and then you mount it. And then at that point, you're still putting in a lot of work on the surface of the print itself for competition work. Can you tell me what you did on the surface of the prints?
Mostly do it with dyes or with brushwork or razor blades.
Can you explain that, how that worked?
Well, all you do is shave it.
Shave the emulsion.
Yeah, just very carefully, because it's just the right angle, so you're coaxing it off rather than cutting it off. It's a way of doing it. You gotta kind of get the feel of it. Once you get the feel of it, well, you can do it the rest of your life, you know.
And that's razor blades are exclusively for removing dark areas.
Yeah.
And the dyes were used to emphasize
Yeah.
some areas.
You're taking it away or you're adding it up. Once you get it all done, you got to be careful because if you just spit on it a little bit, you're going to change it. And so you gotta preserve it the way it is. Wax them. Picture of an old fellow who was one of the original charter members of the Elks Club when we were forming that. And he had originally red hair. He wore his hat, which is down in the other corner of the page, is him too. And it was all red. Nobody knew him when he had his hat off. He always wore that hat. But so we got him both ways there. Then over here is the Arabian. It says what we called it, but he was a very muscular man, real nice fella. He used to make fur coats for the ladies, and he wanted to have a picture taken, and I had been wanting to get a picture of him anyway. So we got together one evening, and I made up a bunch of pictures of him as the Arabian. We got Fred Seger over here again as the astrologer, working one of the top prints in the National that year. He was put in the final. I never got the original one back. They saved it for the archives. Same way with the one on the back, called Our Daily Bread. That's him again. And Willie, of course, and these two at the bottom. You couldn't take a bad picture of Willie. He was just good. A fellow who used to have a restaurant, sort of a restaurant and beer garden down on the street floor, right near us when we were on Grand River across from the courthouse. And he had great big cheeks. He was a big, powerful kid. He wasn't real tall or anything, but he was all muscle. And I thought, I'd like to get a picture of him with his cheeks bloated out like he was going to whistle or something, and then have his fingers up there to try to sneak it, a whistle out. It didn't work out the way I wanted it because his cheeks were so heavy and so thick, the skin was so thick that they didn't bulge out like I wanted them to. But it hung in the National. It was good. Bernie Riemann over here, he was just a great guy, German guy who fought for Germany in the war. He spent his time over and being captured. He was captured by the Russians with hundreds and hundreds of other Germans at the same time. And they used to be pretty loose with their prisoners. And they grouped them all together in little villages, and then they'd go out at night and mix with the Russian girls whose men had been gone for a long, long time. And so the German boys were enjoying themselves. Down here is our fellow again. He came over on Sunday morning. I was going to be there on Sunday morning to get stuff I had to do to get out for the first of the week, and I told him that I wanted to get him sometime. Maybe we could do it that Sunday morning. So I called him up. He had this little restaurant in there and a beer garden too. And he was there, and he said, "I'll be over right away." And he came in through the alley and in the back door and into the studio, and he had a 6-pack of beer with him. I said, "What do you got the 6-pack for?" He said, "Well, we got to have this if we're going to get some good pictures here." So we took this shot of him with the stein of beer, and everybody looked at it and thought that beer stein was empty, but it was a stein I had in the place there. It was full, all right, but it was empty before he left. We went through that 6-pack of beer. This was a lady who just came in and had to have a picture taken. Somebody wanted her, or kids wanted a picture of her, so I took her regular pictures, and then I said, "Do you sew, And she said, "Well, all the time, I just repaired kids' clothes all the time." So I got a picture of her sewing, and then a picture of her here threading a needle. You can't see her or anything. The whole thing is focused on getting the darn thing through the eye of the needle. This one down here was a lady was visiting, came up from Missouri, and her daughter wanted her to have a picture. Her daughter lived in Howell. She wanted her to have a picture taken because she didn't have a good picture of her mother. And so she came in, and we took her picture, and just regular pictures like everybody would take of a little old lady. But she had wrinkles on her just all over her. She wasn't that old. She was 82, but I wanted to get a picture of those wrinkles and that. So I asked her if when we were through, I said, "Are you in a big hurry? I'd like to get a picture of you the way I would like to see you." And she says, "Go ahead." And so I took her, lighting her so that the wrinkles showed up, and emphasizing it, throw a thing over her head, cloth to cover her up like it was a veil or something, and getting her fingers with the wrinkles all showing on there. And that look on her face, she did it just exactly the way I wanted it, and got the picture, and she just loved it. I made up one for her daughter and of this group, of this picture, and she sent it to her mother I asked her to send it to her mother, and she did. And I got the nicest letter back. She said, "Oh, you're a sweet old man." Oh, yeah. This one over here was just the opposite. Now this is a Polish woman who spoke pretty good English, but she spoke real good Polish, and she knew all the cuss words in Polish. And when I took her there too, and she was one I at one time put a thing over her head and got the picture showing the wrinkles, and I showed her the proof of that, and it must have been 5 minutes. She was giving me swear words in Polish, just shooting them at me. She was so mad she wouldn't even speak to me in English. I was the most horrible man she ever saw. But I kind of laughed on the inside. Oh, I was having fun. Over here is my neighbor. He was a great guy. We used to get together quite often and figure things out. But he looked like an old pirate from the old days, and I wanted to get a shot of him. And I had my bayonet from the war there. Used that as a dagger, and they got a red handkerchief strung over his head, and it was hung in the National. Every professional photographer in the United States could send, if they were a member of the National, could send in 4 prints that they thought were their best stuff for that year, and they would all be judged, and they come from all over the United States, and then from England and India and everywhere too, and South Africa. But everybody could send in just those 4 prints, and they would have sets of judges, something like 20 different sets of judges working in July, leading up to the big meeting, and I only had 3 prints that I was really that proud of. I had a lot of prints, just regular daily stuff, but I had 3 prints. There were these 2 and the one of what's his name? Popeye. Those are the 3 I sent in that year. And they're rated from 0 to 100. And these 3 were all in the 90s. And the top print was Willie's, of course. And it got, I think it was 96 out of 20,000 prints that were gone through for that day for the exhibit. It was the top print in the United States. So the one of the pirate here was one of them, and he had 92, and this one had 89. Popeye. So they were the highest three prints group of the 20,000 prints that year. Anyway, I got all kinds of letters from photographers saying the same sort of thing. I saw your pictures, I love them, but when this happens, like the guy from the Secretary Association from Chicago talked to me on the phone, and he said, Zemper, this is when he hadn't told me yet that I was top man. He said, when somebody gets prints rated like yours in a group, you're supposed to be from New York or Chicago or Philadelphia or somewhere. He says, big town. He says, where in the hell is Howell? He couldn't figure that out. Anyway, it was quite an honor. They brought me to Chicago for the big banquet at the end of the thing, and gave me the award and made me a master of photography, all in the same thing. There was a group of photographers and their wives, and lots and lots of people, 2,000 people at this big dinner, and they got me up on the stage and gave me that, made me a master of photography. I'm still just an ordinary guy, in an ordinary little town. Self-portraits. You get to the point when you're a photographer and you're doing people all the time during the day, and you get ideas of what you want to show up in a person, an expression or something, and you don't have anybody at night there when you're doing the film up. You shot up during the day, or you gotta have somebody, and there's nobody there to take pictures of, so you shoot yourself. So these are some when I get ideas of something, I'd set it up and shoot it at night. Now this one, of course, a nasty old man. It was just looking there, and what did I say? Oh, who cares if her seams aren't straight? Now that kind of sets it up. All the girls had to keep their seams straight all the time in their stockings. And so that's the expression I had there, anyway. And the Mississippi Gambler. I'm watching you. That's now this one was the one that I used when the kids graduated from high school and were going on to college. And the boys going to college, you knew what was going to happen. I mean, some of the other guys ganging up in the dormitory would come up and say, hey, let's go out and have a beer, you know, or to look up at the picture of me there then, say, well, maybe I better study, maybe. These are just some shots of me. And this one, when I not only had short hair, but I had hair. This one was taken to me when during the war, of course. I was a second lieutenant quite a few years later, in my 90s. Boy, you're hard to believe how young we were in those days. But it was fun.